How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, yes, it's officially wildcard week. The first initial wildcard guide / wildcard draft will be discussed in this video. So the time has finally come. I know we've made wildcard drafts over the previous game weeks, but this officially is my wildcard week. So this will be a very personal topic to my heart. So in this video, I'll be going over the usual talking points whenever we go over draft. As you guys will know, the fixtures are the bread and butter of any draft, so I'll be discussing those first. Then I'll be showing you guys the actual wildcard draft. This is my kind of first initial look at the wildcard. Just a reminder, this could always change as the days go on. But in the comments down below, let me know if you guys are wildcarding this week. If you're not, don't worry, don't have FOMO. Every team is situational. But in this video, I'll be going over my wildcard draft, so if you guys want to target that with those free transfers 100%. But sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first reminder I want to just go over is the midweek games. Not only do we still have Prem games coming up, yes, the Spurs vs Fulham game coming up tonight, we then have Champions League, Europa, and Conference League coming up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now on a wildcard, we can always adjust for this, but if you guys are on those free transfers, I'd probably wait as long as possible, just to make sure that your players don't get injured that you want to transfer in. So just a reminder here that we still do have some midweek games, and I am also recording this before the Aston Villa vs West Ham one. But now let's get into the actual talking points relating to the wildcard draft. As I always say, the fixtures are the bread and butter of any wildcard draft, so I'm going to be going over 6 teams that I think that you guys should be targeting. I'll also be going over the next 6 game weeks. Don't ask me why I go for 6 game weeks. It's just kind of a normal thing to do. If you guys want to go for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, that's 100% fine. Because just please remember, this wildcard has to last you to the new year. So in FPL, we get a wildcard every half a year. So if you guys want to use a wildcard later on, please use it before about game week 20. But let's go over these 6 teams, and the teams I want to focus on are Arsenal, Brighton, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, and finally West Ham. Now yes, there are some other squads that you guys could also look at, some differentials if you guys want to look there, but I think your squad should be mainly used up of these 6 teams. So I'm going to bring up the next 6 fixtures as mentioned from game week 10 to game week 15. In my opinion, these teams have the best fixtures, but let me know in the comments down below, is there a team I've missed out on? The one team that you guys might be recommending is Manchester United, but as I've said in yesterday's transfer plan, I'm simply sick of them, and I don't want any United assets in my team. Now these fixtures also been ranked according to FPL, so don't kind of use these too seriously. The 5 color system that they use isn't that great, and they don't update it as often as I would like. But don't worry, I've also gone over to Fix, and these 6 sides are going to be at the top of the rankings, so don't worry too much about the colors. But let's go over the first team, Arsenal. Now Arsenal is probably the biggest differentiator between a game week 8 wildcard and a game week 10 wildcard, as from game week 10 onwards, the fixtures look simply outstanding. So I guess game week 11 is the only fixture that you guys have to worry about. Yes, Newcastle away is a terrible game, but we still do have some rotation with the Champions League, so I guess it just depends on which team is fitter and healthier. But other than that, we've got Sheffield United game week 10, Burnley game week 12, Wolves and Luton to end off the game weeks. Simply outstanding. And if I was to give you guys a recommendation, I probably would say a double up or a triple up is going to be 100%. Whether you go for a double up in attack or defense is going to be quite integral. But I would probably recommend at least 1 attack and 1 defender. Now out of those options, there's so many options at the moment. If you guys want to go for a striker, Gabriel Jesus back to full fitness should be there. But I prefer the midfielders like a Martinelli, an Odegaard, or a Saka. In terms of defenders, my team value isn't that strong, so I'm currently looking at a Gabriel. But if you guys can afford a Saliba or a Zinchenko, they could be a little bit more secure. So you guys can kind of choose out of those options who you want to go for. If you want to take a cheaper punt, a Martinelli might be quite attractive. Otherwise, the main star boy Saka is probably the one to go for. Then the next team is a little bit polarizing at the moment, not playing great football, still looking quite attacking but not getting results. And that's going to be those Brighton assets. But they have had some really bad fixtures, Liverpool, Man City, as tough as it gets. And from game week 10 onwards, it's almost as easy as it gets. So Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, 4 out of 4 look simply outstanding. And that's why for a 4-week punt, I can see myself going for a Brighton attacker. Now it is quite hard to predict who to go for. Can go for the sensible Matoma, can go for a more differential punt. And the one thing that does worry me about Brighton though is there has been some rotation in that starting 11. But I do think I'll go for probably one of their assets, probably one of their attackers. If a Stupidan's back to full fitness, maybe I'd consider him. But with the way Brighton are defending, I might not even consider it. Then the next team, Liverpool. Now, I don't think I'll be going for too many of their options. I think it's probably the main option, the most expensive one, Mo Salah, as I can't simply go without him against Nottingham Forest and Luton. Hasn't been playing that well over the past couple of game weeks, but still is managing to rack up the points, and that is simply scary as a non-owner. Now yes, Brentford and Man City in game week 12 and 13 don't look that great, but I do think in game week 13 against Man City there might be goals in that game. Then after that, Fulham and Sheffield United, unavoidable fixtures, and that's why I do like these little options. Now if you guys do want to look at a cheaper defender, Tsimikas at the moment looks rock solid. I do believe he's first choice, but might be vulnerable to the occasional early sub like in game week 9. So I think if you guys can go for a cheaper option like a Tsimikas, that's 100% fine. Otherwise the main GOAT, Salah, is the one to look at. The next up is going to be Crystal Palace, the team that just lost 4-0 to Newcastle. Also Spurs up next. You guys might be wondering why I'm looking at them. The only option is because they're cheap and they have nice fixtures from game week 11 onwards. Now that their attackers, super unhappy that Eze is not here. As if he was, he might be a steal at his price point. But at the current moment, probably favouring the defenders. A Johnston, a Gay and Anderson look pretty decent, especially from game week 11 onwards as mentioned. Now the last two teams are super popular, and as mentioned, I'm recording this before the Aston Villa vs West Ham game on Sunday, but fingers crossed that game doesn't lead to too many FPL points. But if you guys are looking for two squads that have great fixtures even for the medium term, Aston Villa and West Ham are where it's at. The only concern though with Aston Villa is from game week 15 onwards you might want to take them out, so if you guys do go for a triple up, you might expose yourself too much by that game week. But I think what I'll probably do is have 2 free transfers by game week 15. I can always take them out before the Man City game, as the next 5 are simply outstanding. Same could be said about West Ham, except for kind of the medium term, they're looking slightly better. But they're also playing a great brand of football, and I think someone like a Bowen is an absolute steal at his price point. But the reason I put these two teams last is because if you guys compare it to a game week 8 wildcard, game week 8 wildcard is at a load of these options, so they're not too different to that game week. But I also want to say that you guys don't have to be too different to that game week 8 wildcard. You guys don't have to compare your teams to those squads. Yes, that template might be strong and valid come game week 10, but if that gets you points, who kind of cares? So these 6 squads, as mentioned, should be kind of the main makeup of your wildcard draft. Have I missed any teams? I know United have good fixtures, but as mentioned, don't want to go there. But is there another team that I'm actually missing out on? There are some other big hitters, such as the Spurs, also a Man City. Those sides can be fixture proof if you want to go there, and I can see myself going for some of the Man City options. But if you guys are kind of a fixture based manager, these teams are the ones to target, as the sea of green is quite strong with them. But now let's go on to the moment that you guys have all been waiting for, the actual first initial wildcard draft. What this is I basically went on to FPL, I played around with some players and some options, and this was the first draft that I was actually happy with. Now the first thing to note is at the top right hand side, 0.9 left in the bank. Even with my bad team value, I was able to afford this draft with about 1 million in the bank, so you guys could definitely probably afford this. Now with that money in the bank, I would probably upgrade another option. Might go from a more expensive asset, example Gay to an Anderson, that sort of thing. But for the time being, this is the first initial template team. So I'll be going through position by position, going over the starting 11 and then the bench. As on a wildcard, you want to pump as much money into the starting 11. But now let's go over the team, starting off with the goalkeepers. And when we're talking about pumping money, definitely not into the goalkeeper position, as we've gone super cheap with Areola and also Turner. Now the only concern about Turner at the moment is that he might lose his place. I don't think he's been playing particularly well, Forest either. So I think it's a matter of time till they go for the new signed goalkeeper. But at the current moment, I think he's the only cheap goalkeeper that actually does play. If he loses his spot, not the end of the world, as Areola looks like the main choice for West Ham. So these two goalkeepers I'm 100% fine with. With the money in the bank though, if you guys want to go for an upgrade, you guys can. But I think Areola is unbeatable at that cheap price point. Also added to that, West Ham have great fixtures coming up, as you guys would have seen, even for the medium term, and that's why he's a lock. Now the defensive department kind of picks itself. Matty Cash is a no-brainer. Aston Villa, great fixtures. Matty Cash is an attacking defender. He's even taking it one step further, playing out of position almost as a winger. So yes, he is more expensive than someone like a Pau Torres, that sort of thing, but I do believe he's worth it if you guys can afford him. This, however, is one position if you guys need some funds, you can always downgrade him to one of his colleagues. As mentioned, quite a big price difference between him and the centre backs. Then next up, I've gone for the cheaper Arsenal defender. It's Gabriel at 4.7. If you guys want to go for Zinchenko, Saliba, 100% fine, but I do believe that he's nailed in that back four. Arsenal also looking pretty decent. Yes, drew 2-2 to Chelsea, but I enjoyed the fight back, and with easier fixtures coming up, I expect some clean sheets. If you guys are also stats-based managers, you'll know that Arsenal are a pretty strong defense, but we'll cover that in the updated Ultimate Guide coming up on Thursday. Then the next option, Crystal Palace defender Gay, centre back at 4.5 million. No brainer in terms of a wild card if you guys are looking for a 4.5. But you guys can also go for the more expensive Anderson that offers slightly more attacking threat. But as mentioned, a very kind of template pick at 4.5, and that's why I've actually gone for him as an almost rotation pair. Now I'll actually be going over the 4th defender, so not exactly kind of going over the starting 11 per se, but I do believe Tsimikas will rotate with our defenders quite nicely. Now he currently is 4.5 million, but I did buy him at 4.4 on the wildcard, and I just believe he's a steal if he's going to be playing minutes. If you guys saw Klopp's press conference, he does seem like the most experienced left back replacement for Andy Robertson, and with lovely fixtures coming up for Liverpool, I think he'll rotate quite nicely. So yes, this back four will probably rotate whoever has better game weeks. The only one that I'm missing here is Kieran Trippier, but I believe his best fixtures are probably behind him. But we have had to go quite cheap on the defensive options because, as mentioned, our team value isn't that strong, but I still believe we got some good fixtures with these centre backs. Now let's see if the midfield department does improve. It's already going to improve because I've got the main man Mo Salah in my squad. I just feel happy and safe at least having him in my team now. So as mentioned, Mo Salah hasn't been playing particularly well, but even though he hasn't been playing well, he's got 2 goals in the last 2 game weeks, and that's absolutely ruined my rank, to be honest. So that's why I do feel pretty safe with him in my team at the current moment, even though he is quite expensive at 12.7 million. I just believe that he is now worth it because we're willing to captain him over someone like a Haaland, so now that premium price tag does go away. I think if you guys don't have Mo Salah though on your wildcard, you might be doing FPL slightly wrong, and I feel like I've been doing it slightly wrong since the start of the season, but not having the Egyptian in my team. Then we're going to fill in that Arsenal midfielder slot with Bukayo Saka at 8.5 million. You guys can go for an Odegaard and Martinelli, who's slightly cheaper, but I just believe Saka's the main man to look at. Now if he's not giving penalties away to teammates, I do believe that he's the best asset in FPL, at least from this Arsenal squad. So the stats are looking pretty decent, and that's why I still think that I'm going to back him over these easier fixtures, and because I can afford him, you might as well go for him. Now that Arsenal front line is a little bit like Liverpool, quite rotation prone, but it seems like Saka is Arsenal's Salah. The next option, Jared Bowen from West Ham, I still believe is worth good value at 7.3 million, especially if he's playing as a second forward for that West Ham team. So great fixtures coming up, no brainer on a wild card. Let's just hope he keeps up this form. Then Dayvy at 6.7 million also is good value. However, I do believe that if you guys want to go different, this is the position to do it in, as his stats aren't the best, but he seems like quite a clinical finisher. I just think though for the next 4 game weeks, might as well just take a punt on Dayvy, and then you can always move him on by game week 15. Is at quite a flexible price point as well, so if you guys do want to upgrade him slightly, downgrade him, there are some cheaper and more expensive options that are good replacements. But as mentioned, kind of for a short-term punt, the next 4 game weeks, Aston Villa's fixtures are unbeatable, so I'm going to punt on him. Then also somewhat of a punt is going to be Matoma like Dayvy, almost like a 4-week kind of punt to go for. The Brighton fixtures are quite good for the short term, and then you can always move him around that flexible position. Now if you guys do want to go for another Brighton option, you guys can. I just believe that he's my favorite at that price point, and the Japanese international just signed a new contract. So fingers crossed that Brighton do improve and at least Matoma gets on the end of some attacking threat, because the fixtures are definitely going to be there. Then the forward department is pretty kind of predictable. The most template part of a wildcard, or at least the game week 10 wildcard, is the forwards, Erling Haaland and also Ollie Watkins. So these 2 options, not much has to be said about them, just both super consistent. Yes, Erling Haaland is expensive. I won't be going for a no Erling Haaland draft as my initial draft, but stay tuned throughout the week because maybe we'll experiment with the no Haaland draft. I just think the game week to go without Haaland was probably game week 8, and you guys would have seen that over the last 2 game weeks. But in my wildcard team, I'm probably going to have him. I think he plays Bournemouth in 2 weeks' time. Definitely want to captain him, but the game week 10 captaincy is a little bit up in the air. Then in terms of Ollie Watkins, has been super consistent this FPL season, great fixtures coming up for Aston Villa, and that's why he's a no-brainer. Now the only kind of downside to this wildcard is the formation, the 3-5-2. I couldn't afford an Alvarez here. I do believe Alvarez is good value. What I might do is drop one of Dayvy or Matoma and go for Alvarez, but at the current moment I've got Archer as my 4.5. Just think at his price point, unbeatable. Adis's playing is the only playing 4.5, and at that price point better than any of the midfielders. The defender I've gone out of choice is Charlie Taylor. I know Burnley are simply terrible, but at 3.9 million, you got to go there. But you guys can use that money in the bank to upgrade this position if you want to. So this is going to wrap up our kind of starting 11 and our bench of our first initial draft. I know that you guys might be roasting in the comments down below. So if you guys have any critiques, comment them down below. What changes would you guys make to this team? Otherwise, if you guys have made your own wildcard drafts, you guys can also drop them in the comments down below. If there are any major red flags, I'll point them out to you. I'm always here to help. But this wildcard draft will be modular. As the days go on, I will adjust it, depending on midweek football news, which hopefully there are going to be no injuries. But wildcard week has officially started, get hyped, and just remember the deadline is on Friday night. But this is basically going to wrap the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for loads of wildcard content coming up this week, so make sure those bell notifications are turned on. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.